want to thank everybody for coming to the work session in the city of South Fulton. At this time, Mr. President, you call the roll. Mayor William Bill Edwards here. Mayor Pro Tem Mark Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Catherine Rao. Councilmember Carmelita Gums. Councilmember Helen Z. Willett.
Here.
Councilmember Naima Gilyard.
Here.
Councilmember Rosie Jackson.
Present.
Councilmember Khalid. The mayor, you have a quorum. Okay. Mr. Clerk, would you sign the first item? First item for discussion is an auditor's discussion and analysis presentation of 2017. And I believe our CFO is going to begin.
So we have our auditors who will be presenting our report, let's say from May through September 2017, our audit report. And I have two partners, that's Mr. Adam Foley, who's a partner, then Mr. Doug Moses, who's a partner, and Mr. Foley will be the one that will be the first to speak. So I hand over to Mr. Foley.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Adam Fraley. I'm with CPA firm Mauldin and Jenkins. We're the external auditors for the city, and we were so for this first year of the city. As you know, the city's financial statements are required to be audited and submitted to the state of Georgia within 6 months of its year end, and we conducted that audit. I was the audit service partner, and then I have with me Doug Moses. He's jumping around trying to find it. But Doug Moses, who is the ultimate concurrent partner on the engagement, and I'm going to let him present the results of the audit. But what we've got a copy here of the financial report, those audited financial statements, as well as what we call our auditor's discussion and analysis. And that's what you see on the screen up there and in front of you. And Doug is going to go through that. It's a summary of the results of the audit, et cetera. So, but please feel free to stop us if you've got any questions.
This one, please. It's not on.
Okay. All right. Good evening to the mayor and council. Again, my name is Doug Moses, so I'll be presenting the audit results. So again, if you have any questions as I'm going through, don't hesitate to stop. Go to page 2 for the audit presentation. All right, just some information about Mauldin and Jenkins. Our firm is actually celebrating a milestone this year, 100 years of providing services. So we're very excited about that milestone since we've been around since 1918 providing services. But our governmental practice continues to be one of the largest niches in the firm, representing about 25% of firm practice. We audit over 400 governmental clients in the southeastern part of the United States. And 100 of those are cities. And 105 of those clients actually received the GFOA Award in Excellence in Financial Reporting. So we're very excited about those clients that received that prestigious award. Go to the next slide. It's working. Okay, good. All right. Like Adam Fraley alluded to earlier, he was the client service partner with 21 years of experience. Again, I was the quality assurance partner with about 19 years of experience. And James Bentz, who's not here today, was the audit service partner with 15 years of experience. So we had 3 partners on this engagement. So again, that's a lot of expertise that we bring to the field because we spend 100% of our time doing governmental audits. So we don't wear different hats during the season as far as doing taxes and things of that nature. And then down below is just some other industries that we serve and other services that we provide other than your traditional accounting and auditing services. Again, the financial statements are the responsibility of the mayor, council, and management. Our responsibility is to get an opinion on those financial statements. And we've issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which is what you will hope to get from the external and independent audit. Again, this was for the 5 months ending September 30, 2017. The audit report date was as of March 28, 2018, which means that your audited financial statements were timely completed and submitted to the Georgia Department of Audits by March 31st. So again, hats off to management staff and others for working very hard to ensure that the city met that deadline. Also within the financial statements is a report in accordance with the government auditing standards. It cites the findings that we had this year, and we'll talk about those findings as well. And it also had a March 28th audit report date as well. As far as our relationship with management, we received full cooperation from management, staff, and others. There were no disagreements with management over any type of accounting issues or financial reporting matters. We did propose a few audit adjustments. Those adjustments are included in your package, and we'll talk about some that resulted in the finding a little later. Main thing here I want to point out is our independence. We are independent of the city in its financial reporting process in accordance with AICPA professional standards. There were no fees paid to Mauldin and Jenkins for any type of management advisory services, which would have impacted our independence as your external auditor. The next few slides kind of go over some financial trends here, looking at fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures. And so, we had the honor to audit the past 14 newly incorporated cities in Metro Atlanta. And so we want to show you some trends here, looking at those cities with different fiscal year ends, and then kind of comparing how it's been for them in their first few years of operations. So again, here is looking at September 30, fund balance to expenditures for City of South Fulton, City of Chattahoochee Hills, City of Milton, and City of Johns Creek. Again, a good rule of thumb as far as fund balance as a total of expenditures is to have anywhere from 2 to 3 months of reserves in fund balance, or anywhere from 16 to 25%. Of course, you all are not there your first year of operations, only 5 months in as of 9/30/2017. So you all have to rely on a tax anticipation note of about $11.8 million to get you through those first few months of operations. All of these newly created cities had to do the same thing. Normally what we see in the third year of operations that these cities tend to not rely on tax anticipation notes. As the revenues all coming in, at that time you also take on the infrastructure and capital assets from the county, and a lot of times a lot of the capital projects are undergoing during that third year of operation as well. So again, you see how you all can compare against some of the other cities with the 9/30 year. The next slide is looking at December 31st. Year end for the newly incorporated cities, City of Dunwoody and City of Brookhaven. Normally, December year end, governments sit that happy at year end. So at that time, a lot of their property taxes have been collected. But it's kind of misleading because you would think, people may think that it's like that throughout the year. But those property tax revenues that all come in at the end of the year, December 31st, have to get them through the full calendar year. So again, a lot of December 31st, governments look pretty healthy at year end because the majority of their property tax has been collected at the time. The next one is looking at June 30 year end clients, and this is City of Tucker, City of Sandy Springs, City of Peachtree Corners. City of Tucker is the latest, newest city, and you can see how those have looked as well over the first few years of operations. All right, this slide is looking at your general fund revenues for the 5 months ended September 30, 2017. So it's not a full fiscal year yet. So you had total revenues of about $11.5 million, and your largest revenue source at this time is your sales tax, coming in at $9.7 million. The next slide is looking at your expenditures for the general fund. Total expenditures came in at $18.1 million. Like most governments, public safety is the largest expenditure, coming in at $12.1 million. Your second largest expenditure was culture and recreation, coming in about $1,813,000, and then Public Works is your third largest, coming in at $1,798,000. So again, your expenditures exceeded your revenues by $6.6 million, which resulted in the city having a deficit fund balance in the first period of operations. All right, now we go into the findings. We had two findings. Again, it says material weakness were required by the standards to, if any adjustments are deemed to be material or other areas are deemed to be material, we have to cite it as being material. But to me, two findings, first few months of operations, limited staff, pretty clean, in my opinion. The first one related to some audit adjustments that we had to make to the accounts receivable and revenues to make sure that they're properly reported at year end. Nothing too alarming about that. I think going forward, you shouldn't have any issues with these types of receivables and revenues being reported. The second one deals with segregation of duties. For the first few months of operations, you only had two individuals kind of responsible in the accounting department. So individuals had to be responsible for the entire phase of a transaction, and normally you don't want that. So again, you had some segregation of duties issues surrounding payroll controls, financial reporting, bank reconciliation, things of that nature. I believe now you've hired some additional accountants, and so you shouldn't have any issues going forward with segregation of duties. Now we go into the management points. These are just recommendations for improvement. These are not considered findings, but just areas for improvement and things that we noted during the first period of operations here. The first one deals with contract service classification. We noted that in our review of the intergovernmental payable that the expenditures by function, like public works, public safety, didn't agree with what actual expenditures were. They were based on a percentage allocation in accordance to the IGA. So in total, the expenditures agreed, but just within those classifications they didn't. So we had to make a reclassifying journal entry to make sure those expenditures by function agreed to what was actually paid. Also, during our testing of credit card transactions, we looked at about 10 transactions and noticed that 3 out of the 10 transactions did not have supporting documentation. Also, 3 did not have indication of someone approving those transactions and reviewing those transactions. So we just need to make sure going forward that all P card transactions are being properly reviewed and approved by appropriate individuals. P cards are typically an area where you see a lot of issues around local government, so we want to make sure that we have good controls in place around the P card transactions. Third management point deals with depreciation expense. We noticed that a vehicle was put into service in August of 2017, but no depreciation was recorded on that for 2 months. It was an immaterial amount, but again, as right now you don't have a lot of assets on your books, but as you continue to grow and take on your infrastructure from the county and things of that nature, your assets are going to grow. So we want to make sure that you have a capital asset software system that's automatically calculating this depreciation when these assets are added to the system. Also, mention point number 4, we noticed that the city filed the wrong federal tax returns. They were doing the 941 quarterly tax return. The city did the 944, which is an annual federal tax return with withholdings that are less than $15,000, and you all had withholdings that were about $178,000. So we want to make sure the right quarterly tax federal tax returns are being filed. All right. Management point number 5 deals with consider ledger maintenance. We noticed that a few ledgers are being maintained in a sales spreadsheet, like for your compensated absences, dealing with sick leave and vacation leave. You want to make sure that you kind of automate this because we have employees coming and going, pay rates changing, and things of that nature. You may fail to have that information updated correctly and timely. So I'll look to have an automated process for tracking your sick leave and vacation leave going forward. Also, we noticed that at the time, the city did not have a defined detailed list of businesses operating within the city's jurisdiction. Again, you don't want to make sure you don't leave revenue off the table. You want to want to make sure all your businesses are identified and they're paying their licenses and permits and things of that nature. And I know the city is working towards that. Management point number 6 deals with disbursement controls. We noticed a check sequence was not properly accounted for during the first few months of operations. 14 of the 39 checks within the range obtained from the general ledger were not issued, but were skipped. And then also 3 of the 39 checks that we found had cleared the bank, but then on the check register report, it showed that it didn't clear. So I just want to make sure that all of that is being accounted for properly. And then the last management point deals with policy adoption. We want to make sure that you adopt policies in these areas of compensated absences, purchasing, credit card use, capital assets, record retention, and things of that nature. So make sure those policies are adopted and that employees are following those policies and procedures accordingly. All right, so that's it as far as findings and management points. Very clean, in my perspective, compared to other clients I've seen. The next few standards pages here go over new standards that were either implemented during the year or will be implemented going forward. GASB 74 and 75 deals with financial reporting and accounting of other post-employment benefits, your OPEB. If you were to offer an OPEB plan to your employees, you need to follow these standards and report the total unfunded actual OPEB liability. Right now, you all are not offering any OPEB plans or pension plans to your employees, but if you do going forward, consider GASB 74 and 75 for OPEB plans, as well as GASB 68 for pension plans. The next standard I want to talk about is standard number 77, deals on page 24, deals with tax abatement disclosures. This was applicable for fiscal year 2017 for you all. It requires governments to disclose any tax abatements that the city has entered into or any other jurisdictions have entered into that affects your tax revenue base. For 2017, for the 5 months ended in September, you all did not have any tax abatements to disclose in the footnotes. But going forward is something that you have to continue looking at to make sure that you're disclosing those tax abatements that you all may enter into or that other governments may enter into that affects your tax revenue source. The last standard I want to talk about is statement number 87, deals with leases. I think this will be applicable for you all in 2021 or even 2022. It's going to require a lot of governments to start reporting leases as capital leases, where they may have been accustomed to reporting them as operating leases in the past. So, leases of copier machines that are deemed material, things of that nature, you'll start seeing those reported as a capital lease payable as well as a capital asset in your financial statements. And the last thing I want to mention is we continue to offer free quarterly education classes to our clients. 4 times a year, they can earn up to 28 hours, it's on page 33, of credit. This has been a big hit for our clients. Again, it's free of charge. We normally have them at 2 locations, one in the Atlanta area, and typically we have it at one of our clients' facilities, and then one in Middle Georgia around Macon area for those clients on that end. And you can see the various topics that we cover, anything from internal controls with payroll, internal controls with cash receiving disbursements, new GASB standards that are coming out that's going to affect our clients. Anything that we think our clients need to be aware of, we're having those classes. And sometimes we bring outside people in, but normally the partners and managers and in charges within the firm will teach those classes. So if you want to be added to that mailing list as an invitee, email Adam Fraley, myself, Doug Moses, a page, and we'll make sure we get you added to that list. And we also send out government newsletters to our clients as well to keep you abreast of the changes out there that may affect your government. But that's as far as my presentation. If you have any questions and comments at this time, we'll address those. But thanks for the opportunity to serve South Fulton in this first year of operation.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for the report. This really puts my mind at ease to know that we do have a clean report. And even when you look and you see some of the weaknesses, you might think that, you know, there's something really serious, but I happen to know that it really was a combination of, we're just starting out, we don't have that much staff, we're doing the best we can do. And I think during that 5-month period, I believe the staff really did a great job. And during that period, it was really only 2 staff people.
Right, it's tough.
So,
And if I may add, you know, as Doug mentioned, we've audited all the newly incorporated cities the first year and beyond, and very few of them actually get to the state on time without an extension that first year. So 2 staff, first year, on time, really hats off.
thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, very important. I just wanted to get clarity. I didn't want to stop you in the middle.
Okay.
How many years did you say most new cities go before they stop getting TANs?
That 3rd year of operations.
They start to kind of, it phases off for many of them, but they start to kind of phase off in that.
Or at least the dollar amount of the TAN may decrease.
That's
as
right,
well.
that's right.
So like for you all, instead of doing 11.8 million in year 2, you might do 2 million. Do nothing at all.
Anyone else? I would just like to say, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
So, are we gonna, for the courts, how do we audit their finances? Is all of this included? Or municipal?
Yes, I think so, Mr. McDonald. You talking about municipal court? How do
Is
we?
that a separate audit?
No, so they were not included in this audit because of the timing of the first 5 months, but they'll be included in the future process.
Okay, so,
It'll be reported as an agency fund, so
Okay.
it has its own separate statement within your financial statements.
okay, I know what this is.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you for the report. This necessarily isn't for you, this is for Mr. Malazzi. I know that through the report, we read some things, and of course, those are some of the hiccups of starting a new city. Can you, at least for the public, just kind of talk about what recommendations have been put in place or what things have transpired since this audit?
So the biggest problem we had was the segregation of duties. We had limited staff, and it's required if someone is on accounts receivable, the very same person cannot do accounts payable. Payroll, again, if you are responsible for changing salaries, you shouldn't be the same one paying payroll. So as of now, we have enough staff in human resources, we have enough staff in finance, that someone changing, preparing payroll will be not the very same person that will be able to check their people, their layers that can do that. Same thing, bank reconciliation. If you're on bank reconciliation, you can't be doing the bank reconciliation at the same time check. You have someone that has to. So we are really privileged that we have already added 3 accountants between the time they did the audit and now we've already created. So we have enough staff. And the policies, all of the policies that have said there, have already been submitted to the attorney and to the city manager for review, for adoption. Some have already been adopted. Almost all of those ones have been put to implementation.
So far much more oversight than we had when we first started.
Yes. And the good thing is, again, I think it's very soon, if it's not before end of June, we'll be implementing OpenGov, which will be, again, as they have said, not many cities, even some that have already had, have never had that chance to implement OpenGov. So before the end of June, we'll have OpenGov where people will see how much we are spending, where our dollars are going.
Ms. Lewis.
2 things. Who has P cards in our city? And then the second question is, for the filing of our annual tax return, will you, maybe this is what I can ask you, will you all consider allowing a CPA firm to do that instead of doing it internally?
We don't file annual taxes. It's on quarterly basis. as we receive this quarterly basis that we have to pay state as well as the federal.
Right, those are for SUI, those are for withholdings and SUI, that's what you're talking about, right? What I'm talking about is the annual, we don't have an annual tax return?
No, we don't.
The 941 was the annual, that was for withholding, federal withholding. And
So you asked.
do we have the capacity to handle that internally, or do we need to try to consider an outside?
We have paychecks that we process our payroll, and they are filing it on a quarterly basis. And
Go to the phone, can you go to the phone?
it's paychecks.
Paychecks is the one that is doing all our, you see, they talked about we filed the wrong at the beginning because as most of you know, we started about 6 employees. So we couldn't file with the federal government at the beginning of the 1044 because we were less employees, but as we were progressing, the adjustment was not made. So Paycheck is doing everything for us. They are filing everything every on quarterly basis.
So did we get fined any penalties or fees for filing the wrong form?
Actually, we will not get because they do file on our behalf. If we don't, no, those one, it was corrected without any penalty. We didn't get any penalty.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a P card.
Yes, you asked about pay card. Pay card is managed between the finance as well as the purchasing manager. The policy that both of you co-sponsored it, especially Council Woman Rao, is to do with the P card is for every department. Like now, every department has got P card. That P card is specific as of now is to make the smaller purchases that can be there. If you go beyond the threshold amount, you have to have PO. PO is a coverage to say that at least you have been authorized, you have money. So all those systems are in place now.
Right here.
I wanted to know where we are with tracking our capital assets, and just for clarification, although the ordinance was drafted regarding the controls on purchase cards, we haven't adopted it yet. That kind of got lost in this, so it had, I'm waiting. Exactly.
So that has been the one that has delayed. I think it was ready by September. We talked about that, but I think now it has gone already to the zoning and at any time the purchase policy.
Exactly, but we started working on that last year, so
Exactly.
it's just been on hold for a while, so just for clarity. And did we, and I think you addressed it, did we correct our payroll tax file on the report to 941 quarterly? And I think the answer is yes.
Okay, let me just say this. I think everybody up here has kind of been on pins and needles pending this report. And we're glad with this outcome. But I gotta say, Mr. Malazzi, what you had to work with, let me take my hat off to you. That's it. All right? For us to be in this position, for what you had to work with, and some of the little criticism you got from up here too. But you still standing, it was good criticism, you were saying. But you hung in there and you brought the report. And to the staff you got now,
Yes.
who are working diligently every day, to make sure. I'm not concerned too much about I'm concerned, I know where you find findings. But the most important question was asked by Councilwoman Gunn, and that is, what are you doing about it? And I can rest assured that you have put things in place along with the recommendation of this company that is going to take us to a place we need to be in terms of that. I don't like PCARs. PCAR means prison. I don't like PCARs, but you're handling the way you should handle them, and thank you so much. And to the company, thank you all so much for the thorough job that you've done, in bringing these findings to us. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, by the way, if you didn't get a long thing out of Willis and Gilyard about this kind of stuff, you did good.
So can I say thank you, Mr. Malazzi, please? Because, and I knew that you followed up, that's why I didn't. because you have to. So, thanks. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Clerk. Call the next item, please.
Next item is letter B, City of South Fulton website preview that's being presented by Ashley Minter, and then I'll let Ashley say her last name, Public Relations Specialist.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Minter Osenyemi, and I'm the Public Relations Specialist for the city. I'm excited to provide the website presentation for you this evening. So the first slide that you see is just a snapshot of our current website. While it's a good effort, we are very excited and happy to move forward with the direction that we're taking for our new website, or our soon-to-be website. Our goals that we have for our website are, one, to be user-friendly. We want users to access information easily. It'll also serve as a tool that allows the city to be as responsive and transparent as possible. It'll establish a sense of place, and also will provide access to services online. So our current website is just a placeholder. Our new website will include more interactive features and a much more rounded experience for users. Like I mentioned, the new website will have increased functionality. This is just an example of the look and feel functionality of what the website will provide. This is actually the city clerk's main page. As you know, the city clerk office maintains a listing of the city's boards, commissions, and task force. So users will be able to click each link and go to a page specifically for that individual board or commission or task force. And this is actually an example of what that individual page may look like or will look like. It'll provide an example, or an explanation of that board or that commission. It'll also provide a slideshow of each board member. It'll have their picture. It'll list when they were appointed and who appointed them. Users will also be able to access the agendas and minutes for each board as well by clicking that link. They'll also be able to click the email icon and email directly to that board of commission or regarding that board of commission, any issues or questions regarding that board of commission. So we're still working on the look and the feel and design of these pages, but again, our focus is to create a seamless experience for users, and again, increased functionality and access to information. Users will be able to click the Muni code icon and go directly to our code of ordinances. So again, this is just increasing that functionality and allowing users to get directly to whatever the information that they're seeking. They'll be able to access our contracts and agreements that the city has currently entered by clicking the contracts and agreements icon as well. And all of these documents will pretty much be hosted on our website also. As far as elections, they'll be able to have access to whatever pertinent documents are related to elections. They'll also be able to click the link, click the icon and access any current election information for that particular year. They'll be able to access our ethics filings and also any related documents dealing with ethics. They will be able to access our meeting and agendas and minutes as well. Our proclamations, this page will give them a view of the proclamations that have been presented by our mayor and council, and then they'll also be able to, what you don't see here, they'll be able to put in a request for a ticket for a proclamation, and then that will be taken care of on the back end of the website as well. So in summary, what to expect, like I mentioned, One of our goals is to increase transparency. Open Gov is going to be a major way that we do that. It'll basically be highlighted on multiple pages throughout the website. It'll also allow residents to easily view how the city spends tax dollars to provide services. Again, we want to increase responsiveness and provide access to services online. Our 311 platform will be featured on multiple pages throughout the website as well. It allows citizens to report different issues and also request services. So we have 2 dates. Our soft launch date, which was pretty aggressive, is June 22nd. It's a tentative date, but because we're working with multiple platforms and multiple third parties, we're actually going to push that date back a little bit because we want to make sure that when we do our soft launch, we want, when users access it, we want to present as much information as we can. So we have our soft launch and our hard launch. The basic difference between the soft and the hard launch is the soft launch is just a general overview. Users will be able to access pages and information, but the hard launch will be the full-on implementation of our website. For example, the Parks and Recreation Department, which is a fairly new department to the city, they'll actually have their own header package or their own website within our platform. And so that's something that will be rolled out when we do our hard launch as well. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Ms. Gilyard?
Well, first of all, thank you so very much for this presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
And for this work in a short period of time. It has been a dramatic change. However, there are a couple of things a couple of questions that I have. And one of them is that, as I see it right now, and not like moving forward, there's nothing on the website really about the council at all. Very little about the mayor, but at least, the mayor's picture is there and his little letter as you open it up. But as you get deeper into it, there's really nothing about us in there. And I was wondering if there is a way that our individual newsletters or newsletters by district could be a part of the website. Is that possible?
That is something that I'll definitely look into, and I think that's great feedback. So I'll definitely look into making it.
So that, and this feeds into the current.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This feeds into the current newsletter that really looks great. It really looks great, but it doesn't have anything about the districts and the council. And so if we can get that out there, then we can have that whole image of oneness. There's the city manager, there's the mayor, there's the council, there's the people. There'll be things out there about the people, as well.
Yes.
And so if you could look into that, I'd really appreciate that. But I love where you're going, and this is a great start.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I think what the city manager may have been alluding to is that the current website, yes, it doesn't have much about the council members, but that is a placeholder. We are working on really expanding the different parts and different pages of the website to include more information.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Guns, followed by Councilwoman Rob.
So again, kudos to you. You have done a lot, so I really appreciate it, especially for someone who is really big on communication. I like the fact of transparency and responsiveness, so hats off to you.
Thank you.
My question is kind of similar to Councilwoman Gilyard. In most cities and counties, they do have a landing page for the district and identifying who the council person is, the landscape of the district. Just kind of moving in that direction. If there's something that's happening, particularly to that's happening in a district, whether or not that council person may have a newsletter, or even if they need to get in contact with that particular council person or their legislative aide, just something that could identify, that can easily move them to what's going on in a district. And maybe the locator as well, letting them know where their district and maybe a map, something like that. Also, too, when is the tentative date for the soft and hard launch of Open Gov? You know, I'm very antsy about Open Gov. You pushed it back from June 22nd. Do you have an anticipated date?
Not quite yet. I'm actually going to work with the city manager to for a new date, but I assure you that it will be coming very soon, and Open Gov and 311 will be integrated. 311 will also be rolling out some new things as well for the hard launch, but both platforms will be integrated throughout.
We're not looking at maybe another 6 months. Or
Oh, no, not at all, not at all.
I think that.
Okay.
Not to reiterate what they said, I do kudos on the job well done. A couple of just suggestions relative to our city newsletter. I do like the idea that one of the council members mentioned relative to, I think our messaging has to be united. If we could have a section where you're highlighting, you know, things that are unique in a district, that there's a section that breaks out that, so that we're sending one message, is because sometimes, you know, our newsletters say all different things, but if it's one that's coming from the city that touches and talks about all districts, I think it moves us in the right direction. And so I also like the suggestion that Councilwoman Gumbs had in terms of you can at least spotlight on each district, see a map, find out who their staff support is, that kind of thing. That would be, I think, very helpful.
Thank you.
I think Councilman Willis had it. Willard, Councilman Willard, then Councilman Taylor.
I would like for, if possible, the bios and the information for the governance, the face of the city to be given priority. Because when people are asking where can they get information on my colleagues or council members, I always defer them to the website. And for there to not be much out there, now I understand what people are saying now. Also, I agree that we do need to be able to click on the individual council members and maybe redirect them to our individual websites. I mean, that's how it is when you go to the county commission in most cities. And also notices, when we have town hall meetings, when we have events in our districts, we need to be able to make sure that information is pushed out via the website or also social media outlets that are available. I sent out a postcard, but a lot of us are doing electronic postings, but it would be great if we can push it out for the city as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Khalid?
You know, I love a good website. I'm looking at the City of South Fulton website 2.0, this slide. Can we put that up just so everyone can see it? Is this the proposed homepage?
This is part of it. So I basically wanted you all to see what the icons may look like. Again, we're still working on the design, the layout, things of that nature. But I just kind of wanted to give an idea of a new and improved look from what we have currently. This is the direction that we're going towards, but we are still very much working on the design portion of the website.
I just have a few design reviews. One is on one side of the website. I think that it would be helpful if you just had the numbers for each of the major city departments just right on the homepage so people don't have to dig into them. Also, a search bar, I think, is also, helpful on each page, particularly when we get into, and I'm sure OpenGov has this what I want to say, they can do this, where people can search by keywords for, people may not know what the actual ordinance is called, but they know it's called trucks or something is in it, something like that. Several city websites have a how do I button kind of on the top right. So it's like, how do I pay a ticket, like with the most basic questions, and I think we could probably use some algorithmic data that, constantly be improving which questions are the most popular. And these last couple ones are I'm so glad that we just did this audit report because they kind of loop in the finance department. Well, let me ask you first. I want to make sure that, especially for people my age and younger, that the mobile version of the website is as interactive as the desktop version. I don't think that we currently take Apple Pay or Android Pay, Google Pay. Is that something that we can look into doing in the future so that people want to pay a ticket and if I'm on my phone, I can just pay it with my fingerprint through my Apple Pay?
I'll definitely look into that.
And then lastly, I know that we are coming up on budgets and a couple of progressive cities are doing this really interesting thing. I off the top of my head, I can remember that Baltimore is one. It's called Open Budget, and it allows residents to see, once the budget has been put out, what the proposed budget is for the next year, it allows residents to kind of like go in and play around with the numbers so that they can see how difficult it is to make out a budget and how important it is for us to get all the tax revenue that we can. I just think that's a very, it just gets residents engaged and politically educated about how our financing budgets work. But other than that, I mean, everyone said enough about the mayor and council, although I call it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray, you in with us? Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And Mr. Donald, I want to thank you for making some good selections in terms of people we're bringing in and doing a fantastic job. So I just want to thank everybody for doing what they do.
Thank you.
And they're from South Fulton, by the way.
Absolutely.
I am new resident.
Absolutely. I know it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next issue.
The next item is Animal Control Services presentation, and that's being made by City Manager.
Who's that? Who's next?
Animal control.
Oh, it's up there.
You do animal control?
To have a very quick presentation on animal control. The reason for this presentation is because it is time to renew our IGA with Fulton County related to animal control services. And after kind of reviewing the proposal from Fulton County, while I think we should be moving, or we're in a position where we almost have to move forward with the IGA, our staff has reviewed a variety of alternatives that the council should consider, or we believe the council should consider moving forward as we look at being able to deliver all of our services. I think the first thing that we wanted to highlight is just what the Georgia Code says, and while it is broader than this, the two key areas just highlight what animal control services have to be provided, and that they have to be provided within the corporate limits of the municipality, but it does allow you to partner with the county to deliver these services. One of the things that we looked at in reviewing the current proposal, which is before you on the screen and inside your packet, is that besides Atlanta, the city of South Fulton pays the largest share of the overall proposed contract, with the city of Atlanta, I think, burdening about 60% of the cost, and about 23% of the overall cost was with the city. Previously, I think it's down to about 18%, and our cost has gone down a little bit this year. But still, we're looking at more than $850,000 allocated to animal control, and the concern is not necessarily the cost, but it is how you're billed through the contract, meaning, as you see, if you look at the numbers, it's based on the call volumes. And what happens is if Mayor Bill Edwards calls because there is a rabid dog running in the streets, and then Councilmember Gumbs makes the same call, those don't get counted as one. Each call individually is captured. And so with that, what we have looked at is how could we potentially, while budgeting this same amount of money, maybe lower our cost and increase services by bringing those things in-house at some point. And so in doing so, one of the good examples, and I'm sorry, I'll go back to this same example, we highlighted College Park. Now, much smaller city, much smaller population, but their model allows them to have one of the lower costs, even of those cities that, even of those smaller cities. And so the reason for that is because they house their own facility and they have their own staff members, and what they leverage with the county is the actual storage of the animals once they pick them up or whatnot. They have the lowest numbers of calls and the lowest cost. Again, I do temper that because they are a much smaller operation than we would have to be, but their average cost to the county per capita is one of the smallest that we have. I think for us, I just think that at some point we do need to look at the benefits of bringing this inside, not only because of cost, but because of other considerations. So I think the first is having a dedicated staff eliminates the per call charges, and it allows you to be as responsive as you'd like to be or not. It also could have increased service delivery where there's shorter response times and you receive less calls. Also, having a dedicated holding facility allows you again to only transfer. And as what we've seen right now, it could result in reduced cost over time of more than 20%. I think the other thing though that we want to look at, and we met with or had a conversation with Matt Kallenmeyer, and I sometimes say his name wrong, but he's over their emergency management at Fulton County. And so Atlanta has also looked at this model, but for an operation as big as theirs, they determined that it's more cost effective to continue with the IGA. But I do think based on the way our city operates and how we're spread out, we may be in a better position to be able to coordinate these services. We're not quite complete in making a recommendation, but just wanted to inform you that this is what we're looking at. And we do have to make a decision pretty soon. So our formal recommendation will be on the June 26th agenda on whether to move forward with the Fulton County proposal as presented, or to, which again is more than about $850,000, or moving forward with a temporary agreement with Fulton County where we fund it for the first 6 months and then leverage that time to be able to either reevaluate it or to stand up our own process through the FY19 budget. And so another advantage again that I think we have that we're evaluating is how our 311 platform would allow us to coordinate these services as well. So very early in the process, and we do have to move quickly, but just wanted to bring that to your awareness that we're looking at additional alternatives to be able to save money and potentially increase services.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes, sir.
You know, in every manager's meeting, every mayor's meeting, I have consistently said this whole issue about calls, where you can get 10, 15 calls on one animal. And if you go back and look at those cities who have reduced this down, it's also surrounding the number of calls. Give you an example. Palmetto had the same problem. And what Mayor Odie did was, he decided, and we can't do this because we don't know, he decided that he was going to make a call to the police first. And the police would go out, and then they would decide whether this is the same dog or not. All right, that's what he's doing in Palmetto. So we got to think, when we think realistically about how we bring the cost down, a lot of it's going to be centered around the calls for service. Okay, I started talking first, I'm lost. So let me give it to you.
She's first,
okay.
I'm second.
Okay.
So I must admit that me and a couple of my neighbors are guilty of calling when we see stray dogs, because sometimes you'll say, well, you call and I'll call and then we'll get a faster response. So maybe, so maybe we need to kind of educate the neighbors on that piece of it as well. But is there something like maybe we can have a text feature, an email feature, or like you said on the 311, that was the way we can kind of control the cost versus?
So I think the model that Fulton County has is not a bad one, but it is county-wide. And so they have a county-wide contract with the vendor, and I believe that calls is the best way for them to be able to track it on a large scale. And again, I am not certain that this is something that we could immediately pull in-house. This is one of the newer IGAs to me. But our 311 platform actually allows people to put those requests in real time, like you said, from a text or an app, or even from a telephone call eventually. Our first iteration of 311 won't allow the telephone portion, but I believe that if we control the process, would eliminate the call process period, because you would not get charged per an instance. You would have a built-in mini response team that would just coordinate regardless of how many calls you made, and you would be able to place your call or complaint instantly. With Fulton County, one of the things I guess we have to talk to them about over the next 2 weeks before the next council meeting is what types of thing, if the city is willing to take it on, that they would allow us to do within the contract to lower the price.
Okay, well, I'm certain you didn't know that we were costing the city.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's a problem with most people, is that, again, you've got an independent third party that is managing the process for you, and then you have government, and then you have citizens, and so they don't know how much this is truly costing us.
Gilyard?
A couple of things. The first thing is that I thought when we contracted with the company, that the company housed the animals and, and took care of all of that. But I'm seeing down here that Fulton County has a holding spot. So that's number one. Number two is, are we talking about having our own call system soon, and Fulton County storing the animals for us until we can figure that out and do it some other way? And then how much indirect cost would we save on that model versus what we're paying now?
So I think that's what we're exploring. I don't have an answer for you for that yet. What I would say is one of the there are not a lot of people in Fulton County who coordinate this service the way College Park does, but there are different iterations. Theirs seem to be the most cost effective. They also have a very small area, not a lot of citizens, and so it would be taking pieces of their model and others to create the South Fulton model. And it would mean that, very similar to them, we would lease or own a holding facility. It would mean, now they have, I think, one full-time and one part-time person. I'd imagine from the general research that we have, we might need 3 full-time people. But that would essentially eliminate the per call cost. And so you would, if Councilmember Gumb's neighborhood did 1,000 calls, there's no difference if they did 1. And so now we have to establish whether those 3 FTEs, this lease space and any other ancillary cost is cheaper than the $850,000 that we would be paying. And if so, we explore it further. And so I tend to believe that it would be cheaper, but I will say that Atlanta did an analysis. It's not apples to oranges, but it was not cheaper for them. I think we have to just look at it, be innovative, and see what we can do. And we've got a little bit of time to work with Fulton County to figure that out. I'm also a person that says, look, we don't have to agree to what they offer us. So they've offered us an $850,000 one-year IGA so that they can continue with the contract as they bid it. Well, they have all of that stuff in place. What stops us from doing a 6-month agreement at this cost, and then if we renew the IGA, unless they say no. And so I'm going to have that conversation with them. I didn't want any feathers to be ruffled or y'all get any information secondhand. So before I have the conversation with them, we're just presenting the proposed mode of action.
All this time, I thought that the company that we contracted with was the company that took care of everything, and then I didn't understand why Fulton County had to have the contract, you know, as a third party instead of us going directly to them. So I wasn't really clear about that.
I think some of that is because when the first agreement was made, I don't believe that South Fulton was a city, an incorporated city at the time.
Right.
And they are providing the service on behalf of the entire county. And so the cities individually are partnering in, and Fulton County manages the entire process.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got Mr. Brown, then I have Ms. Gilyard.
I wanted to thank you for sharing the information about how other cities have found cost savings via looking at handling their call volume, particularly the College Park example you gave. I think that is something we definitely should look at. I can tell you I've had experiences trying to contact animal control, and a lot of times they are not available on the weekends. And so I would also be interested in finding out how that call volume comes in weekend versus during the week. Because I'm assuming most people are at work during the week and you may not be getting as many calls. So I'd be interested in that, particularly if they're not staffed to receive those calls on the weekends when they're coming on. But just why probably multiple people are calling and they're not getting a response. I also, as we think about holding facilities, and, you know, exploring if that's something we should do, I think again, like you said, it's not an apples to apples comparison. Atlanta might be dealing with more dogs and cats, but we might be dealing with horses and all kind of other things in South Florida.
That's true though.
So we really have to be cognizant of looking at that, and so I'd like the staff to look at maybe some counties who have animal control services that deal with a more diverse population of pets, that kind of thing.
Okay, Mr. Gilyard.
Thank you again, just so much for including us in this process. Could you say a little bit more about the 311 system? Like, when will it go live? Where are the operators located? Like, how does that all work?
So our 311 platform that we're developing so we're starting it in FY18, which is a little earlier than what we expected. And some of it is a part of the budget dissemination to council, so we don't have all of the answers. We're still developing it. But we partnered with an online company that other municipalities also utilize, and they are configuring their system to match the city of South Fulton's needs. And so I think Ms. Osinyembi talked about having a soft launch, and that is, you know, I think what we agreed to, and don't quote me on this, but 2 departments right away, which would be, I believe, Code and Parks and Recs. I'm 99% sure it's Code. I don't remember the second department, and we're still configuring it. And it will allow our residents, it will launch an app for us that I know they had some issues initially designing for us, but it's about done. And so on this, very similar to like how you utilize the tail line, you'd be able to utilize the app to place to identify, let's say, a violation or touch illegal dumping and other things that we partner with Public Works on. And so then a dedicated staff member would receive the alert in real time, and the customer or citizen would be able to get a notice that it's been received at this time. Then when the person logs it, they will know when it's logged and when it's estimated to be completed, meaning their ticket closed out, and then they will get a notice when it is closed out. And so it is mainly an online 311 platform, but that allows for tracking. In FY19, we will be proposing a certain number of positions to manage a small call center that I'll tell you is modeled after the one that it was called the Mayor's Call Center, and then the Customer Navigation Center that we had in the district. And then there's also one, I believe, in Athens, Clarke County. The one there, and I believe it's Athens, Clarke County. We've looked at a lot of them. I think theirs is 3 persons. It was much larger in the district, but we did not have the online capabilities that we have here. So we think we'd be able to do it with a small amount of people.
So I would be personally, I think, trying to do anything with our animal control like this year would be a little challenging. We have a comp plan, our sanitation, and the public works. And just as FYI for people out there, because I didn't know this, dead animals are a public works issue. So if it's dead, you call it public works. If it's alive, you call it animal control. But also, when we bring the animal, whenever we decide to do it, there's a set of ordinances. So I got a dog. I didn't know that you couldn't tie a dog up to a tree. I grew up, you could do stuff like that. You apparently can't do that anymore. So when before we created a whole animal control team, would we have to adopt an animal control ordinance in order to have our own animal control department?
So the short answer is yes. I believe, so let me back up and just be clear. So we would not be saying or even attempting to take this on right away. We are definitely going to have to enter into some type of agreement to coordinate animal control services in partnership with Fulton County and the rest of our South Fulton partners. On another note, I think what we are doing is exploring, do we have to enter into this long-term agreement to do this, or can we, through the FY19 budget process, potentially present something else and have a shorter term agreement based on the recommendation that we're going to present to you on the 26th? It should answer all of those questions. We are actively, like I said, I had a conversation with Matt and that team today to get a little bit more insight on what's required. And I mean, they are willing to work with us and talk to us about what our options are. But definitely, I think there would be some ordinances and resolutions that would have to match it. And some of those things might be able to be done through the budget process.
And then, so lastly, I would say, I think a good first step will be, once that 311 is live, is just to maybe tabulate how many calls. Maybe that's that difference between how many calls are coming about the same animal or not, just to get that information first before we make any other decisions.
Understood, received.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Clerk?
The next item is a discussion as requested by Councilmember Gilyard regarding 2017 and 2018 budget and financial reports.
Well, the first thing I have to say is that the dates are wrong. It's supposed to be 2018, 2019, not 2017, 2018. So everyone please make that adjustment. So the reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because I went through and counted all of the positions that have been hired within the past couple of months. And I know that we were seriously understaffed, as you can see by the audit. And so I counted 13 positions that were originally budgeted in the 2018 budget, where people were hired. And in addition to that, there were 7 positions that were or had to be part of the amended budget. And so what I want to know is, what impact will those 7 positions have on FY 2019? Because they're not going to end just in 2018. And I know that we'll get that information during the budget process, but I just want you to be thinking about when we start that process, that we have that kind of information that says, this is what we did here in 2018. It's going to impact this over here. Not that you won't do it, but it's just a concern. I just want to bring it up. And then the second thing is that financial reports. We did get one during the last council meeting. But what I would like to see on a quarterly basis is, I think that our software will be able to generate it, would be reports by departments. Budget versus actual reports by departments quarterly, not every month, okay? Every month a summary report is fine, just so we can kind of be on top of, where our money is going, because we know money tells the story. And so that's all I have to say about that.
I think, very simply, you were 100% right, the FY19 budget transmittal will answer those other questions. I would also say that our recommendations that were found in the budget modification also kind of answer some of those questions about, defunding certain positions or reallocating where people report, et cetera, and we hope that that allows us to have some cost savings moving forward in FY19 through FY20. And again, you're right, we'll make sure to do that. I think another piece on your second request, so this new OpenGov platform is going to help us streamline that level of reporting that you're asking for, and the way the system is set up, and of course before it launches, I think Councilmember Gumbs, I believe Councilmember Rao both have asked for a work session on how it will work. So I would hold off on that request until we do the work session, because it's a magnificent feature that will provide a level of detail that I think is even more than what you're asking for. And just as a reminder, on a monthly basis, we will, as you said, be providing that broader high-level report as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You're talking about something?
On another topic.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Khalid.
Do we have an ETA for the 2019 budget?
It is a part of the, y'all asked for it as a part of the city manager's report, so during the city manager's report during the meeting, it's in there, in detail.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this issue? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, where are we?
Yes. So, Mr. Mayor, how do I get discussion about Derrick Road? Do I do it out here in a work session, or do I need to do it in an executive session as it relates to real estate, personnel, or litigation? I guess
I personally think that in talking to the city manager, we have more than enough resolution for explanation on Derrick Road. I think you need to get with him, and y'all need to formulate that explanation and get it out to the people.
So I think, just quickly, what the council member asked for some information today, we gave it to her, what we had at the time. She asked for some additional information, which we requested from Fulton County. Have not had enough time to figure out if they've answered that or not, but I mean, we'll continue to be responsive and provide as much information as possible. I don't think I have additional information from what we talked about today, but we can, the reason we responded to her single inquiry and gave it to all of council, because I think 2 or more council members had asked about it, and so as we get it, we'll just keep letting council as a whole know what is happening with Derrick Road. I think the mayor in a previous meeting highlighted his lack of pleasure with the way the road had been taken care of or maintained at Fulton County. I think they had agreed with that and are correcting that issue and plan to have the road completely redone and resurfaced appropriately this summer.
This is not an agenda item.
Correct.
And I don't see it being an agenda item. So let's continue to have the conversation with those who need to have the information, and then get some formalized explanation of what we're going to do, because I think the explanation is really simple.
So how do we get discussions on the agenda? Because if certain discussions can be placed on the agenda by my colleagues, then, I mean, I'm sure I can get discussion items placed on the agenda.
Let me clarify. I want to clarify. There are some things that can be dealt with between city manager and staff, and then dealt with from there in writing to be conveyed to constituents. I do not feel that we need to spend a lot of our time talking about stuff that can be done by staff. I had the same question brought to me, and I was at a homeowner association, but you know what I did? They didn't ask me, I dealt with it first. And I explained they were fine. So I'm just saying, it does not rise to me to occasion of a full-fledged agenda item when you can talk with staff. So I would charge you with getting together all those who were really interested in this, formulating that rationale and giving it to them.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I should not have to go to the commissioner and get information from our county over our internal staff. And I'm just telling you that is happening a lot. I'm getting more information by having to go through our commissioner in the county from our internal staff.
So, Councilman, with all due respect, that's a transportation item which we do not as staff oversee right now. So if you go directly to Fulton County, they will be able to easily respond to you. We have to wait to receive some of that information, and we'll continue to provide it to you in a timely manner.
So what's the protocol? What's the protocol? Should we be going through the city manager for all things?
With all due respect, that's what the city manager said. For all due respect, let's move on. I'm waiting on a motion either for us to recess or go into executive.
I'll make a motion that we go to executive session for personnel and litigation.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second in discussion.
Personnel, litigation, and real estate.
My motion is just for personnel.
Well, I motion that be at real estate, please. Because I have an issue.
I mean, Robert's rule, and there's no such thing as a friendly amendment, so we have to vote on this one first.
Well, you would.
Let's vote on this one first.
You would vote on Councilman Khalid's motion.
Right.
You would move to amend the motion to include real estate.
Right.
You would vote on that.
Right. All right. It's been properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes.
I move it.
I move that we also recess an executive session to discuss real estate.
Second. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, you can second
Properly
that.
moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That does not pass.
Oh, I'm my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Where's your vote? Was that 3-2 or 4-1?
It was, Ms. Jackson.
It was 3-5. There's 2 people are missing.
Right. That's right.
So the vote is what? 3-5?
3-5.
3-5.
No,
3-2.
3-4-5. Oh, 3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
Okay.
It's a long.
I'm not the finance. That's why I'm not the finance department. Right.
We'll be back at 7 o'clock promptly.